Jesus was a rock star.
We are starting a series for the next 3 weeks. Whoops. Why is it doing that? I somehow put that song on that slide, and I don't know why. But we'll see. I know why. No, I don't. I have no idea why that happened. But we're doing a series called Fear Not. And a whole bunch of years ago, I did a series, Fear Not, but I'm not looking at those old notes, okay? So I promise you that the scripture verses are probably going to be about the same as I did years ago, but everything else will be different. Were you ever afraid of stuff when you were a kid? I remember, and men don't share this kind of thing, so please have a little bit of mercy on me. But it was before I moved downstairs, and I was a young kid, grade school, and I looked out of my bed, and I thought there was something there, and I could see it. It looked like a monster shape, you know what I mean? And then I would watch it really close, and then I could kind of see it move, you know? I could kind of see it move, and it would move a little bit. And then Bill Cosby, he made this famous, but it was true. When I was a kid, and I hadn't heard Bill Cosby yet. You take your blankets, and you put it way up your eyeballs, because there's a force field on blankets that monsters can't get to, you know? And so you put that on there, and you're hiding in there. So I'm hiding in here, and I'm looking out, and the thing is moving a little bit. And the next morning, it was a stuffed animal. All of that for a stuffed animal, you know? And you ever think to yourself, if I could have the same stress when I was a kid now, I think I would appreciate it more. You remember when you're in grade school, if you're a girl, you know this really well, the girls didn't invite you at their table for lunch or something, or you're someplace and there's a spat with one of your friends, or maybe you get a bad grade, and that would just stress you out, and it would be so terrible and so awful. And now you're dealing with different kinds of stress. Like, you have kid fears. Some of them are imaginary fears. Some of them are fears that we just don't think about anymore. You know, we don't worry about, you know, as those same kinds of things. But now we got adult fears. Now we got fears: is my job going to be okay? Am I going to be able to take care of my family? I have a health issue that is striking fear in my heart. And maybe I should, okay, I got to ask Ingrid Lisa's permission to tell that one. But I know what cold fear feels like. I know what cold fear feels like. No, I'm going to tell you. She can get mad at me later. Just don't tell her. You don't tell her. I'm recording it, though. I went through a period of time where I was driving some Uber, and and the church would reimburse me for my mileage, but then they would make a lot more. So Uber pays the church, but then sometimes I take out some mileage. And I was taking out some mileage, and I took I have a portion of my salary that is supposed to go towards retirement. Like my board, the guys in Bismarck told me it's supposed to go towards my retirement. And so I had that, and so I had this, and I had the monies, and so for a period of a few years, I started just buying Tesla stock. So much Tesla stock, and it was going so good. COVID was happening, and Tesla was just huge, huge, huge. And and I had, so one day, and I was just being faithful. I listened to all these Tesla podcasts and all these things, and then if you Tesla got down to 100, and they went from 425 per share to $170 per share in a very short period of time. And I had been, for about 2.5 years, taking every nickel I could find and putting it into Tesla stock, okay? And the day that it just came down hard, and I realized how much I had lost, which was, I mean, I don't remember how much it was, but it kind of rocked me. I looked at it, and I all of a sudden felt cold sweat. You know, what have I done? What have I done to my family? What have I done with my retirement? You know, was a house, I was that guy, you know, that's going to lose everything, you know, and that cold sweat. Luckily, I didn't sell the Tesla stock because now, a year, is it 2 years, almost 2.5 years later, I want you to know I am no longer underwater on my Tesla stock because in the last month, it's up 80%. Anyway, so I'm even now. So I'm not quite even. I'm actually up 10%, which had I had it in like a good mutual fund, I would have been there. So, hey, but anything Tesla does from here on out, just so you know, Pastor Scott's blessed. But that day that I just be completely transparent with it. I was in my office. I dropped down to my knees when I saw how much I had lost. And I thought, Jesus, what have I done? What have I done to my family? What have I done to I'm an idiot, and I did this. And it says, and I've had other once in a while cold sweat times. Maybe you've been driving in your car and you saw the lights in your back mirror and you've been drinking. That's that cold sweat moment, maybe it's when you realize this person's going to fire me. That not as bad as the Tesla one, but that was a cold sweat moment for me when fear just comes. And as an adult person, our fear is a lot more real and have bigger consequences. And so there's grown-up fears. The economy might lose. The Middle East is stressful. Open up the news the last couple of months wondering, is Israel going to level Iran? And what is that going to mean for America? Or looking at, you can get stressed looking at the news these days. Maybe, and this is pretty serious, AI is going to take over the world, which just so you know, Elon's been saying all along, and that maybe probably don't know about that. Anyway, Skynet is like for real, just so you know. No, I'm just kidding. Some people say that fear is the opposite of faith, but actually fear is faith, but it's faith in the wrong things. It's faith that something bad is going to happen. Because if it was just neutral, you wouldn't worry about it until it came. But that thought comes, that fear comes. Why are you doing this to me? Stop it. Okay, we'll skip that slide then. So in the Christmas story, there's 3 times when an angel pops up and says, "Fear not," or the New Living Translation says, "Do not be afraid." And 3 times in the Christmas story. So we're going to look at that today. And we find in Timothy, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but what? Power, love, and self-discipline." That's what God, so that's what we're going to be spending the next 3 weeks talking about, is not living in fear, taking all the fear that the world is trying to put on us, all the stress that we put on ourselves, and taking that and bring it to the Lord and say, "Lord, you're God and I'm not, and that's okay." So we pick up, and you can't talk about the Christmas story, talk about Mary, because she gets the first fear not of the, well, Elizabeth might have gotten one, but I got to read that, or Zechariah rather. Anyway, we're not looking at Zechariah. She was, and I never really believed this. If you've ever heard someone preach on Mary, they told you she was a teenager, right? And then I read, I saw someone said she was probably 12 or 13 years old. And I don't know if you know this or not, but you can't always believe preachers, okay? Sometimes they just say stuff, and it's like, and you want to make a preacher uncomfortable. Ask them, "Where did you hear that?" "Well, I heard it." "How do they know?" Just so you know, there's a president of a Bible college that what was his name? It was one of his teachers, and this person said that, and the guy, and I said, that's such a great quote. I'll tell you what it was. It was Nelson Mandela. He has this quote that when the white man came, they taught us to fold our hands, and then they took our land. And then but we got the better deal. Pretty good quote, right? Like, The white man came and he gave us Jesus, and it was, nothing hasn't been perfect. Unfortunately, I can't find that quote anywhere. You can find everywhere they taught us to fold our hands, and the white man took our possessions, or they took our land. That's everywhere. Nobody can tell me the second part of that, but preachers have been quoting that all over the place, and I've asked them, I bet you 6 different guys, how do you know that? Oh, because this person said it. Yeah, but how do they know it? So we preachers get kind of, but it's this one. So I was skeptical, because when you have a teenage daughter, you look at this a little differently. You look at your 15-year-old and you're like, yeah, right. Okay. She's, yeah, right. But actually it was totally true. In the Mishnah was this huge legal document that the Jewish people had. And it's from that, if you've ever heard that there are like 650 different laws, or I forget the exact number, but something like that. And they're all following during the time of Jesus, and Jesus kind of beat up on those laws. It's out of that document that we know that when the girls hit puberty, they're getting married. As soon as they hit puberty. That's kind of shocking to me. Because I look at my girl, and I'm not thinking she was ready at that time. So think about this for a minute. Now, and don't think about dating for us, but think about Mary. And Joseph likely was older. He was more established, and you're probably older marrying someone quite a bit younger. I think that was pretty normal. But we don't actually know how old Joseph was. But she's dating Joseph, and she sees him. Maybe she saw him in the temple, or something like that, and they look across and they see each other and they talk, and Joseph goes, "Hey, can I court your daughter?" What do you think about this? So they've been planning this, and they got together and they talked. And Joseph told her how he was going to start a carpentry business, and she said how she was going to clip coupons to get doves. No, I don't know if she did that, but they planned their wedding, and Mary said, "I don't think we should have alcohol at the wedding." And Joseph was like, "I think that the kid is going to like it, because he's going to make it." Anyway, that's a bad joke. And they planned their family. We're going to have these kinds of kids. And so this is all, so they're all excited. And then, of course, she gets pregnant. And then what is she going to do? And that's what we're going to look at when the angel engages with her. But before we get there, though, Mary knew that God was a God of miracles. And the how I know that Elizabeth, Mary's cousin, had already had a divine intervention and was very, very old and had gotten pregnant. And an angel had come and said that this person, and so she knew that God was a God of miracles, and she also knew the angels sometimes showed up because she is her cousin. And we know that she knew her cousin because after she has Mary has her conversation with the angel, first thing she does is go visit Elizabeth. And she knew the angels as they showed up, and Luke is very careful to point that out. While Zechariah was in the sanctuary, an angel of the Lord appeared to him, and Zechariah was shaken and overwhelmed with fear when he saw him. So before we pick up our Christmas story, Mary knew about this, and Luke points it out because he says, starting out in the Christmas story, in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent an angel, Gabriel, to Nazareth, a village in Galilee. So Luke is very careful to let us know that that Elizabeth is part of her life. It comes to a virgin named Mary, and she was engaged to marry to a man named Joseph, a descendant of King David. And so she'd been engaged for a while. I don't know what their courtship looked like, but she was a young girl. Have you ever seen, now, and I don't know what it would be like to see a 15-year-old get married, or I'm saying 15-year-old, a 12-year-old get married. But I can tell you what it's like for a 12-year-old to get a crush. And, puppy love is very real to puppies. You ever heard that one? And they call it puppy love. But their world, they get all. Starry-eyed when Inger Lisa went to Norway the year that we were engaged. Her dad kept saying to her, "Hey, come on, you're in Scotland again." The girls, they get all like that, and so she's doing all of this, and so Mary's there, and then verse 28, Gabriel appeared to her. Greetings, favored woman, or rejoice, favored woman, the Lord is with you. Now, angels, they do this all through the scripture. They appear, and then fear not. Oh, you're freaking me out, man. Fear not. Of course I'm fearing. And then the next verse, now this Mary, as you might expect, she agrees with you. And she gets confused and disturbed. And she tries to think, what the angel could mean. And this is a fun little verse when you get into it a little bit. First off, disturbed and confused, mentally disturbed, deeply troubled, completely freaked out. This is a heavy Greek word that we have here, and troubled by the message. And so you're greatly and she does not think this is good. She doesn't think this is good at all. Confused and disturbed, Mary tried to think what the angel could mean. Now, I'm no Greek scholar, but I've got incredible tools to be able to look pretty quickly what other smart people think about words. And so I was looking at this verse because I wanted to know about what confused and disturbed meant. And then the way that you can read it in my Bible, you've got the English word, and then you have the Greek words underneath. And what you'll notice pretty quickly, they call it an interlinear Bible. That means there's English on the top and the Greek is on the bottom. And one thing that you'll notice is that there's few Greek words than there are English words. So in our English language, we'll use a lot of more prepositions and things. And so I'm thinking, what is probably not going to have any definition? Wrong. What totally has a definition? And so it literally means, what the heck? You don't believe me? It's even there. It says, what the? What it means is a high point on a scale involving exclamation. How very, how great, how much, intense, severe. Okay, so it's probably not. Because but it is. It's cold sweat. It's astonishment. It's terror. It's terror. So confused and disturbed, Mary tried to think what has the angel could mean. So this, she's like she's engaged. You know, they would get engaged at like 12 or 13. She's 12 or 13 years old. And here's this angel. And she's probably not even hearing the words angel saying so far. You know, she's probably just cold sweat time, you know. What is happening? And she asked the question that we all ask, why me? God, why did you let me make that decision? Why did you let me do that? God, why am I sick like this? How come my life didn't turn out the way that I wanted to? Lord, why me? And all of us ask that question. It's not a very helpful question, but we all ask it. And Mary is like, you know, it brings fear. It brings apprehension. She's not just confused, she's confused and disturbed. It's a heavy, strong Greek word. Why me? Because when God's plan comes, it interrupts. It invites contempt. It brings pain. It causes uncertainty. When God shows up and he injects himself in your life, things happen. And they don't typically have much to do with what we want in our life. Because she'd been planning her life with Joseph. They had been planning their wedding. They've been planning their kids. They've been talking about his carpentry business. They've been doing all of these things. But when God shows up, everything changes. When God's plan comes upon your life, everything changes. Look at Moses. You know, he's doing pretty good. He's, you know, his son in Pharaoh's house and everything's going. But then when he takes everything changes in a moment. Everything changes. And then it changes again at the fire. He got out of Egypt. He's doing pretty good. He's part of a wealthy family again. Married well, apparently. I married pretty well. I hope you do too. Everything changed. David. He's out in the field playing his little harp. And then Samuel says, are all the kids here? are all the kids here? And no, there's the youngest, but he's in the field. He's actually not that good. And Samuel says, none of us are sitting down and how you bring him. I think Samuel's irritated. He's like, you kid, you're not sitting until they get here. So they run out, they get David, bring him. Everything changes. Paul, can you imagine Paul? He is persecuting the church. And when Jesus shows up, everything changed. Everything changed. His whole life trajectory. John, all the other disciples, he outlives them all. They are all martyred. And then John finds himself in the island of Patmos after they tried to kill him over and over again, and he writes the book of Revelation. When God shows up, plans change. And here's what I really need you to hear today is that if you don't understand the plan, you don't have to understand the plan to trust that God has a purpose. If you're in pain today, if you have disappointments in your life today, we all ask why. Nobody does it. But God doesn't answer very well. It goes back to, don't be afraid, Mary. How? Don't be afraid. Okay. For you have found favor with God. First of all, he's pretty audacious, right? Don't be afraid. But you have found favor with God. So I'm already in my Greek interlinear. That word favor, it also means grace. It's a Hebrew word that means grace, unfailing love. And here's the thing, that in my own life, I've learned this. And I think we get to see it in the scripture as well. And that is that grace is kryptonite to fear. Like when fear comes and you say, Lord, I just give it to you. Unfettered favor, that is grace. Favor is the undeserved blessings of God that is lavishly and abundantly poured out on his children. You can't earn it, but you can get it. It is right there for you anytime that you want it. Now, I can tell you what favor looks like. I can know a little what favor looks like. How many of you have ever gotten to, well, there's like 10 of us in here, so I won't do that. But I've gotten to fly in first class twice in my life. Okay, the first time was back in the day, they would bump you up to first class before they had to pay for all these upgrades. So it was years and years ago. Inger, Lisa, and I were, I think we were coming home from Norway the first time. So this is many years ago. And I said, Lord, if they bump us up to first class, I'll talk to that person about you. I'm not making this up, I promise. And then we got bumped up to first class. Now, it was the flight from Minneapolis to Fargo or something like that. So it wasn't that impressive, first class in that case. But so I wrote a note, and I said, and the note said, God sure must like you, because I told him that if we got bumped to first class, I would tell you that. You know, so that was one. But that wasn't that impressive. That was this little puddle. You know, you got to sit in front, and the seat was like 3 inches bigger. But I'm going to tell you how to get on first class on British Airways. Just so you know, a while ago, we flew British Airways, and Elizabeth and I flew separately from England. Lisa home, and so it's just me and Elizabeth, and they're a little bit more proper than the Americans, and so we're excited about being on British Airways. So we're British Airways, and we get put up to first class, and I'll tell you how that happened in a minute. But we get put up to first class, and we walk up these stairs, you know, because we walk up these stairs and they're like recliners. They're huge, and we sit down in the bed. It lays down perfectly flat. I mean, there's no bump at all. They give you a blanket when you come in. The first thing, they give you a scented towel that to just kind of tidy yourself a little bit, and then you give it back to them, and they take it away.